Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Global Reviews webinar series. My name is Kapil Bhatia, and I'm a senior client advisor at Global Reviews. Today, I'm excited to bring you some insights on how global motor insurance brands are managing their user experience online. To start with, I'll take you quickly through the agenda for the webinar. So what are we looking at today? We'll take you through some top level findings on the search trends in the motor insurance industry. What I've done is I've taken out search trends by country and I'm trying to give you some insights on how do users in these countries go about searching for a motor insurance brand. Do they go to more comparison sites versus search? And what kind of comparison of search brands, what kind of comparison sites or brands that they actually visit. Then we have a deep dive in on the quote to purchase journey. We are focused on more on the quote side of things. It's a question that you need to really answer or understand is how is your design impacting customer satisfaction? Do the number of questions do impact customer satisfaction? Do their order impact the customer satisfaction? Or the way you present your form based on the different type of fields, do they also impact this customer satisfaction and the effort it takes for them to complete the form? And in the end, we will wrap up the webinar with some recommendations. What I've also done to save some time is I have pushed the methodology slides towards the in the appendix for you guys to read. However, before we continue, I just want to remind you that in terms of our methodology, all our customers are in market who are actively looking to switch to a motor insurance brand or maybe looking to purchase a new motor insurance. We also make sure that the users don't evaluate an insurance brand that they are currently associated with to avoid any familiarity issues. And also users don't evaluate more than one brand. All criteria and tasks are refined in our studies over time to keep up with customer expectations. Now, a bit about ourselves. We are a digital consumer analytics consultancy where we work in various geographies from Australia, New Zealand, UK, Europe to North America. We've been around since the year 2000. In terms of the kind of work we do, we help users understand why do their potential customers make decisions the way they do. We also help you understand why a competition is making changes on the website and how is it impacting their usability experience. We also help a lot of companies in terms of helping them define their information architecture, designing product pages, etc. Now, here is an overview of our program, our products and services. However, today we're just focused on Fruition, which is all about it's basically about analyzing the data and trying to understand how can you optimize your entire customer journey. While this webinar is all about motor insurance, this slide just gives you a glimpse of the kind of work or the work we do with other brands, and our work is just not restricted to motor. We also work with brands in the life, health, and home insurance sector. Overall, in any given time in a year, we have analyzed 300 different brands, worked across 10 different industries with 5,000 plus users. Now, in terms of how the entire study has been conducted, it's divided into 3 different stages. That's discover, consider, and act. Discover is all about brand perception. How do users find your brand, and what are the attitudes and behaviors towards a particular purchase? In terms of consider and act, is all about website usability, starting from homepage to actual purchasing of a product or service. Just to give you a perspective of the breadth of this particular study that we've conducted. So we've conducted this study in 2018, for which we are going to present some insights on. There were 70 brands that were evaluated with having 1,500 plus users across the study. Now, what we're going to present to you is a slide about how is the motor insurance industry performing globally. So what you're about to see now is a graph that compares the Australian motor insurance industry against the industries that are spread against the motor insurance industries in other countries. What you're seeing on your screen right now is an average performance of the motor insurance brand in all these countries on a mobile phone or a mobile platform. Here you can see that the Irish brands are a percentage point ahead of the Australian brands. However, the UK and Canadian brands have a lot more to catch up. When we look at similar analysis on a desktop, you can see the Australian brands are leading by a mile when compared to the UK, Irish, or Canadian brands. Now, how are the individual brands performing across the industry? Here is a snapshot of all those brands on a desktop and a mobile device. Here you can see on a mobile device, it's the two Irish brands that they are taking the lead, and we have two Australian brands making it in the top 5. However, when it comes to the desktop study, it's the Australian brands that are that make it to the top 5, and within the top 10 brands, it's just one Canadian brand, that's Sonnet, which makes it in the top 10. Now, in any given motor insurance website, a quote form is a key in terms of how a user may decide to continue their purchase of their product or service. Overall, when it comes to the purchase of the product and service, a quote form really plays a very important role. And let's see what are the key components of a very good quote form in terms of how they're presented. So in a quote form, the number of questions really matter. We have some evidence in terms of how number of questions is impacting the customer satisfaction and evaluation of the entire experience. Also, the order of questions do matter. Are we presenting the personal questions before the motor vehicle questions, or is it vice versa? Type of questions also do matter. Is it are you guys having more number of selector buttons, a more number of checkboxes or drop downs, as all these different kinds of fields actually impact the customer effort while completing the form itself. Form design makes a lot of impact as well. What I mean by form design is how are you presenting the questions? Are you presenting all the questions on a single page, or are you having each single question present on each step, and thereby informing customer where exactly they are in a customer journey by using a progressive bar? And then the tone of voice, are you using a very conversational style of language, or are you guys using very simple and plain language to tell customers where they are in the quote to purchase process? Setting expectations is equally important. You need to tell the customers how what do they need to know before they start the quote process. Are we providing them enough help while they are in the midst of completion of an application or code application? Are we giving them the phone number or live chat or some kind of FAQs just in case they have any trouble in completing the form? And at the end, it's the user journey awareness that's very, very important and it matters. You need to make the customers or potential customers aware where exactly are they in the entire quote to purchase journey, just to avoid causing them anxiety. All in all, remember that there's a massive cost of having long forms in terms of users abandoning your website if they are not able to complete these forms and get a quote. Now, before we deep dive into some sort of insights, here is an understanding of how do we really measure the quote to purchase journey in our studies. So here you can see our studies involve task-based scenarios. One of the tasks that we give to the users is the task is to get an online quote and purchase comprehensive car insurance. This task is actually measured using 4 different criteria like effectiveness, efficiency, evaluation, and satisfaction. And also, once they have completed the quote, we ensure that we ask them what are the kind of problems they must have experienced while in the quote completion process. Questions would be like, was the navigation hard to follow? Did the website load properly? Did you have too many personal questions to answer, or you felt the code process was too long? And using all this data, we are able to extract insights for various brands and your competitors to help you enhance your website usability experience. Now, let's straight away look into what are the kind of examples that you can expect to see in this webinar today. Here is a first example of a brand called Intact. That's a motor insurance brand in Canada. What we like about this brand is it's able to vary the experiences on a quote journey across its different platforms, whether it's mobile or desktop. What they really do is they try to present the information in a different way. So when it comes to selecting of your car, the type of car on a quote journey, they actually have a list of years that that you can pick up in terms of the make of your vehicle. When you click on the year, what happens is the screen transitions to the next step, giving you the model name rather than making you click on the next button or a continue button. Remember, every tab adds to another second, and you don't want to waste your time. Also, what they do is they have got a progress bar in terms of a percentage point that's being represented that makes the users that allows the users to know where they are within the entire quote to purchase journey. Also, they have a massive interesting use of iconography rather than having a drop down or a check button that makes it easier for users to understand the information on a mobile device. They also have this personalization factor where the website actually remembers your previous selections, thus making it easier for returning prospects to continue and complete the purchase journey faster. And also they vary the questions between a desktop and a mobile. For example, on a mobile device, what they have done is they've asked the gender-based question, but they probably avoid asking this question on a desktop. Also, they changed the order of those questions between desktop and mobile based on the efforts, effort that's required by a user to complete the entire form. While we have seen a classic example, let's straight away head into a search behavior of the user. So what we usually do in our study is we ask our users to shortlist a brand based on the research they have performed on the website or on the internet. So we would have given them access to a blank screen, and we just tell them, now here's your opportunity to go ahead and look for your preferred motor insurance brand. And the way we analyze the data is looking at their search trends, looking at their click paths, looking at what kind of websites they visit, what kind of keywords they type in, and how do they arrive at their final preferred brand. However, today we are looking at only a top level understanding of their search trends. What you're looking at the current graph on the screen right now is what are the search trends and what are the kind of websites that users from these countries have gone to look for a motor insurance brand. As you can see across the screen, looking at the green bars, it's the search that dominates their entire behavior. They all end up going to a search engine to start their journeys. However, what the exception is the desktop study in the UK, where the aggregators are actually dominating the user behavior. The users are far more aware of the aggregator brands, which help them to arrive at a decision on what kind of motor insurance brand they would prefer. Now here is a one level down in terms of the details, giving you far more understanding on what kind of aggregator brands or motor insurance brands the website their users would have visited. Here you can see all these, the list is arranged by the number of visits each of these websites have attracted during our studies. So while the Australian market had a varied response in terms of mobile and desktop, where in mobile where the motor insurance brands that were dominating the visits, whereas in the desktop it was one aggregator website that's compared the market that took the lead. Now the only exception in this entire research is the UK market, where you can see the top 3 websites were all aggregator brands, thus showing that the aggregators are doing their job in terms of attracting all the traffic and thus influencing the decisions of these users. While aggregators do continue to close the gap in the Australian market, I wonder how will it play in the coming next few years. It's about time you embrace the change or give a fight in order to retain your brand presence. Another thing that you would have noticed in the Australian market is that there's these three brands that consistently come up in the top five. That's Budget Direct, Amy, and Allianz, even though they come up in different orders. Now, while we have seen the top level search trends, let's look at the code journey in terms of, does the length of the code actually impact customer satisfaction? Yes, we have some evidence around this in terms of how users perceive your entire code based on the design, and then once they've completed the entire task, we ask them how satisfied they were in the entire journey, and here's the evidence on the next screen. What you can see here is brands that had lower number of questions typically have a higher satisfaction rating. With the exception of RAA, this trend is seen consistently across all these brands on this chart. And the chart that you're seeing now is part of, the data is from an Australian study that was conducted on our mobile devices. Now, to look from evaluation point of view. So what is evaluation? Evaluation is actually a question that we ask the users in terms of once they complete this task. And the question that we ask them is, how many of you did not encounter any problems while getting a code? So across 70 sites that were assessed across these 4 countries, that's Australia, Canada, Ireland, and the UK, we have taken 8 of the top performers and 8 of the bottom performers to compare the code tool and the code journey, basically. On an average, 56% of consumers who use the top performing sites did not encounter any problem when completing a code online. This is compared to just 22%, 22% from those who just use the bottom performers. So again, the green bar being the highest and the black ones being the lowest in on both desktop and the mobile study. Another area that I would like to talk about again is comparing the total number of questions against the satisfaction rates of the users. In each pairing brand, the worst performer asks more questions than the top performer. The biggest extreme in the number of questions asked was seen in the UK. The desktop code for Aviva was a reasonable 16 questions. In comparison, Swift Cover's desktop code had 44 questions. Now, while we have created some kind of correlation between the number of questions and satisfaction and evaluation rates, let's look at how some of our other brands in the motor insurance industries are presenting their code questions across the journey. Here is an Irish brand called 123.ie, and here's another there's a brand that you all are familiar with probably, it's AXA. You can see how both these brands actually vary the kind of questions across their journey. This 123.ie starts with asking car details, whereas AXA starts the code journey by asking personal details. AXA also utilizes the entire selection input pattern rather than a drop-down, and whereas 123.ie has got a drop-down pattern. And then 123.ie uses a selective progressive disclosure technique. What it does is it varies the questions based on your input, and based on your input, it poses the next questions on the entire form. And also what they have done is they have structured the entire questions based on a yes and no format, saying, do you have any other policy with 123.ie? Yes or no. Do you know your postcode? Do you know are you a homeowner? Yes and no. So based on those binary questions, they start positioning the next questions are posed based on your responses. Also, what AXA does really well is it places the input fields side by side rather than stacking them vertically, thus by ensuring that the font size looks shorter or smaller. And also, AXA is doing something that we usually don't recommend, is splicing the date of birth fields. We wouldn't recommend any brand to do that, actually. So I'm showing some examples on how some of the brands are presenting this date of birth field in their code journey. Now let's look at some Canadian brands in terms of how they are managing the quote process. Here's a screenshot of a insurance brand called TD Insurance. What they do actually is they present the vehicle-based information in drop-downs. However, you can see there's another screenshot that's I've marked it at number 2. It's a brand called Sonnet that's based in Canada. What they do is they don't ask you to input different answers for your car. They just have a predictive text, and the question they ask you is, what are you driving? And if you enter, say, example, Audi, it comes up with a drop-down list of all the potential Audi brands, and asks users to select the car that they are driving. Also, what Sonnet does is it's got a predictive text for its address search. However, the other 2 brands, that's Intact and Personal, they only ask for postal codes in their code journey instead of asking complete addresses. And also, what TD Insurance does is the regular thing. They have spliced their fields. They've got their year, month, and day for date of birth. However, what Sonnet actually does is something interesting. Is they've got the month field as a drop down and the day and the year field as free text. So using a month field as drop down, they only need to have 12 different entries, whereas the day and year section is something they can't potentially have a drop down by having so many more 30 or 40 plus entries for these different sections. So it makes sense for them to just have it as a free text. Continuing with the Canadian insurance provider examples, here's another example comparing Sonnet and TD Insurance. Here you can see how TD Insurance presents the marital status question, by even though they've made it very clear, they've got icons and just putting one question per page on a phone. What Sonnet really does smart is they've combined all these questions using a checkbox. So instead of asking what's your marital status, and select these 3 different, select one of the 3 different options called single, common law, married. They just ask one question saying, I'm married or have a common law partner, and you have to check it. And if you don't check it, it's assumed that you're not married. So that's eliminating the need for creating icons of, asking another question, whereas you can get away by just doing check boxes in the entire process. Another example is Intact. So Intact, the Canadian brand, what they do is they try to get the users to the quote journey, to the quote price as soon as possible, and then have a list of some other questions or personal questions on that quote price. Because what happens here is once you've got the quote price, and if you try to play around with these different other questions, based on your inputs, the quote price really changes. So what they're trying to do is get you to the quote price as soon as possible, and then based on your inputs, you can then figure out what based on the input, you can figure out what how you can figure out what needs to be done and how you could manage the entire quote journey based on the price that you get. Now, the interesting thing that Intact does is before you start the quote process, they have a pop-up. What the pop-up actually asks the user is to enter their license number, and then Intact could extract their personal details from the license number. So this is a great time-saving strategy where you can ask users to input something that that they're aware of, and then you can extract potentially all those details and pre-fill them. So from the license, they could potentially pre-fill their first and last name, maybe the address as well. So that saves some time to the user in order to complete the code journey. Now, while we have given you some best practice examples from these different brands across the world, what I've done in the next coming 2 slides is compare the motor insurance industry against all the other industries globally that we actually analyzed and have studied in the last year, and that gives us an idea of where exactly is motor insurance industry as a whole headed, and is there any more further opportunity for it to improve its usability experience. So the chart that you're seeing about you right now was created based on assessing 60 different brands, and now you're about to see the top 14 brands based on their self-service journey. So it could be a quote to purchase journey for a brand. It could be opening a savings account or many other things. So on this chart that you're seeing right now, you can see there are only 4 motor insurance brands that make it to the top 14 in the world. And they all happen to be the Australian brands. However, if you see the top 3 industries, it's home insurance, cars, and health insurance in Canada and UK that have the highest satisfaction and confidence scores. So users have rated the self-service journeys on these particular websites to be much higher than the insurance brands. Now let's look at the similar analysis on a desktop. On a desktop, we measured 74 brands and their self-service journeys, and here are the top 40. And while things are looking a bit more positive on a desktop, there's so much more work to be done. What's happened on a desktop is there are 3 different brands that have made it to the top 14. However, it's the home insurance brand from Allianz in Australia that actually tops the entire self-service journey experience. While we have looked at these brands, now look at some example from other industries in terms of how they present their code process journeys and what can we potentially learn out of them. So here is a chart that you're seeing for journey for a bank called BMO, that's Bank of Montreal. This chart actually represents their savings account opening journey. What we have actually done is we have analyzed their entire form based on the different field types, whether it's selector buttons, radio buttons, drop downs, etc. And what I've done on this chart is actually given highlighted sections where there are certain messages that are given by the bank during the self-service journey. At question number 4, as a time when the bank prompts a user to tell them what are the kind of documents or what's the kind of information they need to complete the entire process. And also what they do is they use a positive affirmation to tell the users what exactly do they need while they're completing the form. So for example, at question number 14, they might come back and say there's only so much more questions to be completed, you're doing well, and you're very close to the completion of the entire savings account opening process. To give you some more examples, here's a way that they present their entire form. Here's the first screen, and they have a much more very conversational style language. The way they would say is already a customer with BMO, with a BMO debit card, yes or no, based on your input. Then they would start varying the different screens after that. Also, what they really do is they have this display of the phone number, FAQ, constantly displayed across the screens, so that if a user has any sort of problems, they can pick up the phone and ask for assistance. Also, they have made sure that they've taken in measures to reduce the bounce rate. So if someone is trying to exit the application, they would instantly prompt them to save the application before they leave the website. And also, as and when you transition to different screens, you can see that they keep changing the background of the screen to as what happens is by breaking up the by presenting different background visuals, it helps you to break up the experience, and thus it helps you drives encouragement in terms of completing the entire process. When I was talking about positive affirmation, so here is the screen on the process, step number 14. So while they are at step number 14, while you completed that, they would come up with a message saying, "You're doing great, Adam. Just a few more questions to go." Thus, just nudging the user to make sure that they don't abandon the form, and there's only so much more for them to do to reach to the end. Overall, the BMO website actually has just 1.82 questions per page and have a very less form effort, which makes it a very perfect self-service journey to look up to and see what you could potentially adapt from their website. Some other examples are Sonnet. Sonnet is very good at encouraging users to bundle the products. You can see when you click on the code, get a code call to action. They have these 3 different call to actions followed by that. So you can get a code for home and auto, or just home, or just auto. And they don't give up this entire bundling concept at the start of the code process. For example, if you have clicked on, say, a home insurance code, when you have got the code, they again prompt the user saying, add another code for auto insurance, so and bundle up to get more savings and discounts. And they continue this entire start thinking of bundling even after the customer has purchased a product from the website, because once you've completed the purchase, they again prompt you for getting another code for some other product or service from their website. This is another example. It's Allstate. They're very good at using signposting in terms of how to let users know what kind of code they have received so far in their entire journey. So you can see how they've highlighted auto here, and then they have highlighted auto, home, and term life as well, telling the users that there's another product called insurance for renters. Would you be interested in getting a code? The only thing that they might fail to communicate are the benefits. They don't communicate this anywhere on the website, telling that if you combine these different codes, you may be eligible to some sort of savings or discounts. Another example is Bel Air. This is Bel Air from Canada. What they do is they have used a number of icons on their pages. They try to have just one question post per page, thus eliminating the chance of errors. Also, they have offered a phone number display a phone number constantly across the code journey, so just to ensure that the users are aware of who to call just in case they have any sort of trouble. And also their code automatically recalculates if you have changed any sort of details on their purchase on the code journey. And also they encourage the bundling process as well. Now, while we have seen so many insurance-based brand examples, here's one more example from an energy industry. What the brand is called Octopus Energy. They're an energy company based in the UK. So what do they actually do well is they have this call to action, which doesn't say purchase now or get a new energy plan. They just say start your switch, and then they keep pitching you the prospects of saving money by switching with them. And then they also have this tab version of presenting different tariffs. When you click on one of them to get more details, you usually would get up a pop-up that progressively disclosed, and you can always click and close the pop-up and go back to the screen that you have originally started your entire process on. Also, the pricing details are grouped and explained in a much more transparent manner, so the users know what they're getting into. Now, this brings us to almost to the end of the session. Here is a quick summary of our key recommendations in terms of what we would like to say based on our insights that we have presented today. In terms of a key recommendation, definitely consider looking at listing the most important information at the start of the purchase process, so that users are aware of what they need to have with them before they get into filling the form. Look at the order of your questions in terms of how are you presenting them. Would you like to present the personal information first, followed by the motor insurance questions, or vice versa? Also consider the way you present these questions. Are you having one question per page, or would you like to combine them together and just present all the questions in one page? As users tend to, looking at the questions, users decide the kind of effort that they have to put in to complete the entire code journey. Also consider bundling of your products to cross-sell more products and services to your customers. You must have seen so many more examples on how companies are bundling their products and services in the code journey. Leverage your technology to pre-fill personal details. So, for example, we saw how one of the brands called Intact was prompting users to enter their license number before they start the code process, so they could extract and pre-fill their personal details on the form. Also consider assuring the users about the purchase journey. You want to constantly pitch them the benefits of buying that product or service from a website, and tell them why, and always keep on reassuring them that they are making the right decision in terms of getting the product. Also, constantly use icons on their website, for explaining particular piece of information if you can, as it allows users to grasp the information much faster and complete the code process faster as well. Well, this brings us to the end of the webinar. There's a lot more insights that we would like to talk to you about. What you saw today was just a glimpse of our analysis in terms of our clients. What do they really get? They get complete tailored analysis at a very micro level. They also have access to historical data. We also do insight activation workshops with our clients, and other than that, we help our clients with their managing the entire or developing their information architecture, helping them design product pages, understanding what the competition is doing, and how could they potentially learn from the competition and adapt similar experiences to enhance their website usability. So in order to if you'd like to talk to us about 2019 research and analysis needs, I've got Maddie's contact number on the screen right now. If you have any sort of interest, comments, suggestions for us, feel free to get in touch with us, and have a nice day. And thank you for your time.
When we're talking about it.